who were deserted by the Prime Minister in Normandy yesterday. A very unpatriotic Prime Minister. It was dreadful.
Britain is broken. The Tories are finished.
This ought to be the immigration election.
Labour are set to win.
Why don't you stand by your record? You'll record levels of taxes on working people.
But a new wave of politics is thrashing its way into the political scene.
And we are going to be the voice of opposition. And I tell you what, I've done it before. I'll do it again.
Nigel Farage, the man that made Brexit happen. He stood up to the EU and said no more. Now, he's standing up to the establishment of Britain. But who is he? Can he win votes? And what does he do for Britain? We'll be examining the man's past, present, and future, looking at the substance of his viewpoints and actions.
Your only real achievement is that Britain is now isolated, alienated. We are completely alone within the European Union, which is why, Prime Minister, I urge you. It's often been said that you wanted to be the permanent President of Europe. Please stay on for a further 6 months, 6 more months of the British presidency, and they'll kick us out.
Nigel Farage was born in Farnborough, Kent. His father was a stockbroker, known as a great storyteller and the best dressed man on the stock exchange. His mother, a glamorous lady, would strip off of fundraising calendars in her late 60s and early 70s. But at the age of 5, his father left his family due to alcoholism. Farage went to school in an affluent area in South East London called Dulwich College, a fee-paying public boarding school. But he achieved mediocre A-level results and ended up as a trader on the London Metal Exchange, rather than going to Oxford or Cambridge with his peers. In his early 20s, he was run over by a car after a night of drinking in the pub and nearly lost his leg. He's been married twice and now currently has a much younger girlfriend. His upbringing explains why the man is seeking approval all the time. A man of the working classes he is not. His lack of studious detail that you'd need for good A levels is evidenced in his political role today. We have, however, a man not perfect, or even remotely pretending to be the school prefect, relatively hard done by. He went on to achieve lots of money for himself and transform British politics.
Isn't it funny? You know, when I came here 17 years ago, and I said that I wanted to lead a campaign to get Britain to leave the European Union, you all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
Farage became a member of the Conservatives in 1986, but voted for the Green Party in 1989 for their Eurosceptic policies in the European election, where they won 15% of the vote. He left the Conservatives in 1992 over the signing of the Maastricht Treaty and founded UKIP in 1993. While Farage has lost 7 elections, his vote share has been growing steadily from nothing, and his European vote share has been even more impressive. There's been a lot of political controversies and changes throughout his career. In 2015, UKIP stood on a manifesto to keep the NHS free at the point of delivery, but in 2024, and while the reform contract says this, he has talked publicly about changing the model of the NHS completely. UKIP wanted to integrate the NHS into social care. Reform do not. In 2017, UKIP had moved further to the right. With Farage no longer leading, they planned to ban face coverings in public. In 2018, Gerard Batten was allowing Tommy Robinson to advise the party. Farage was upset and believed he was marginalising the party. The Brexit Party was formed later that year. Their first leader, Catherine Blakelock, was forced to resign when it was discovered that she'd shared a British National Party activist post referring to white genocide. However, under Farage, the party went on to win the most seats in the 2019 European elections, as Brexit was the main issue of the day. In the 2019 election, the Brexit Party stood down in seats, allowing for the Conservative majority, and then in 2021 they changed their name to Reform, as Brexit was no longer on voters' minds as much. Farage has never been able to shake off the accusations of racism and consistently associates with racists. He talks about immigration and integration so much that for some it becomes an obsessive issue, as if where one is from is all that matters for him and his party. Although he's careful to talk about race and religion, and doesn't talk as if only white people deserve rights, but he does mention immigration so much that it's easy for the other parties to paint that picture of him. But that, to some, is part of his appeal. He's not afraid to say things and be honest with the British public.
And we get our deal done. Don't forget, it's an oven-ready deal.
We're going to build a wall. It's going to be built.
Take back control of our borders. That's what people voted for in Brexit, and they're just not doing it.
Populism thrives off short statements. Substance is boring. Substance is bureaucratic. It dwells on the deep depths of legal and economic arguments that paralyse British politics into a lack of action on any significant changes. But substance is what populism needs to enact their policies. After all, the detail, law and economics is what drives MPs to vote in favour of a policy in Parliament. Brexit is a good example of a policy which Farage was asking for, but which lacked specific detail when the vote happened in 2016. For example, Farage has mentioned wishing to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, although it's not in the reform contract. He wants to do it to help deport migrants crossing the channel on small boats, but he fails to mention what he'll do to the other rights in the ECHR. Our right to life, our right to freedom, our right not to be tortured or imprisoned, the right to respect privacy, the right to marry, need I go on? Him and reform will call me Project Fear, but it's this detail which counts. Also, why has Farage mentioned it, but it's not publicly on the Reform website? Reform is funded as a limited company. All its funding goes to its owners. Unlike other parties, its small donors from party members get no say in party policy. Large donors include a climate change skeptic. But it appears from polling and social media traction, the party doesn't need a lot of money to do well.
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day!
Reform has managed to stick it to the man. It's the only party, other than the Conservatives, with a high enough polling percentage on the right of politics. It's playing down its electoral chances by aiming to be the official opposition, and it's only likely to win 1 or 2 seats with the first-past-the-post system. But that doesn't matter. 2015's UKIP won 1 seat, but managed to put pressure on the Conservatives to hold a referendum on leaving the EU. This caused years of fractions within both Labour and the Conservatives. The Prime Minister's commitment to Brexit, to enacting it, to making the most of its freedoms, to helping it boost the economy, to reducing migration, is what's led to 4 different Prime Ministers since that referendum, and will likely result in the resignation of Rishi Sunak as well. Populism has managed to change the status quo from dull politics to continual scandals and resignations corrupting the system to suit its needs. The more radical reform tried to become without being racist, the more it highlights just how dysfunctional our parliamentary system is. The problems with reform and Farage are clear, and similar to the Tories: racism, culture wars, in it for their own personal funding, infighting and populism without substance, daddy issues damaging the country. But the popularity of reform isn't the fault of reform, rather the fault of a long-established political seesaw which is failing to inspire the Britain of the modern age. Britain is broken, and people have seen the status quo long enough. As Labour say, they just want change. But do you agree with me? Join in the comments below and subscribe.